Welcome to University, a podcast for young people navigating life's big transitions. I'm Emery and I, your host. On University, you'll hear stories from college students. You'll get tips from experts. And occasionally, you'll hear from a parent's perspective on how to manage this time of change in your life consciously. Find yourself, find your purpose, find your people, and pursue you fearlessly. All right, I'm excited about this last episode with Emery Bergman, and what I'm really excited to be talking about is roommates. So in this episode, Emery shares what it was like for her freshman year and her solution for managing moldy yogurt and how she stayed sane even with a messy roommate. Take a listen.
Like I've spoken to a lot of students who move into a dorm, their roommate, they click right away.
Yeah, and they're like best friends.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, I've met a lot of kids like that, and at the same time, I've met a lot of kids who expect that to be the case. I'm a big person who's like, your roommate is no reason, like, your roommate does not have to be your best friend. As long as you guys can live together quietly, that is all that needs to, like, be. Like, the whole roommate thing is a little crazy. Because I feel like people, especially going to college, thinking that, like, you need to be best friends with your roommate. And I'm kind of against that. I feel like being best friends with your roommate is dangerous. Because then, like, all the, like, if you are really close with them, and then, like, the little things that, like, they do, like, can just separate you so quickly. Maybe that's just a me thing. But, yeah, people who, like...
So long? How did you choose your roommate, and did you have a good experience with your roommate?
So I found my roommate so I got into my school off a wait list. So I was and it was really, really late. Like, it was late May that I got into school. And basically I got this call and they were like, okay, you have 5 days to decide. And I was already committed to a different school. And so that was like, so by the time I did commit, everyone had pretty much found roommates or, like, had committed to random already. But this one girl did reach out to me, and she did a gap year and, like, traveled the world, and she's, like, super interesting. So I met up with her in New York City. And she's really, really cool in the sense that she's just so hardworking and, like, really just such a driven person. But we did function on very different, like, time. Like, I am, like, a night owl, and I will work late into the night and then sleep until, like, 1. But she's the complete other way around. Like, she'll wake up at, like, 8:30, go on a 10-mile run, come back, do work, go to the library, and then, like, go to sleep at 10:30. And then it was like, she was just, like, very packed schedule. And we could not have been more opposite. So, like, I would always come back in the dark, and also our schedules are very different with regards to classes. So, like, a lot of times I would have to, like, get ready like, in the dark, and it was just, like, kind of annoying. We ended up in the same sorority, and, like,
So,
we disagreed on, like, some stuff.
how did you deal with...
Oh, yeah, Greek life?
well, okay, I want to talk about Greek life, and I want to talk about, real quick, you said we disagreed on something.
Yeah.
So this is like relationships, right? So when you get your first apartment or relationship, and, you know, or an intimate relationship, and move in with people, you have to learn to deal with how are we being with our different patterns and cadences in life. So in college, I think it's really hard because we haven't quite figured out, how do we tell them that annoys me, and or you know, how do we deal with living with someone that we hardly even know. So how did you guys deal with conflict and, you know, all of that?
So at first it was bad because I'm passive aggressive, and so there was, like, a lot of times where she would do stuff that I didn't like, and I would just be quiet about it for a really long time, and then it would come out in bad ways. So she's incredibly messy. Like, she knows it too. So she did listen to this. I don't think she would be upset with me saying that she was, like, low-key disgusting. But, but it was really because she was never really in the dorm because she'd always be studying. Like, she was probably one of the hardest working people I know. And she would be in the like the library for like 12 hours at a time, especially during finals. Like I never saw her. She was either like working out or studying. So she really was never in the dorm. But that being said, she like kept her side of the room like so messy. And like
And I take it
I'm really clean.
you're clean. You're neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very
That's
clean.
hard. That's
And
really
so
hard.
it was really, I mean, it wasn't, as long as it really wasn't on my side, I didn't care. But we shared a fridge, and she bought like a ton of like, she ate really healthy, which is great, fantastic. So we always had like fresh vegetables in the fridge. But because she was never here, a lot of them would like rot, and it was like really gross. Or like she would like make food and then it would be on the rug, or like it'd be like there'd be like extra, like one time she like left a bowl of oatmeal out for like 2 weeks. So I had to like, there got to a point.
The oatmeal's there. You want it gone. You don't.
And so I just had to like be like, hey, we need to talk. Oh my God, I used her name. She's like, hey, we need to talk about the room situation. And she's basically, what I said was like, it's whatever. I don't care how messy your side of the room gets, as long as there's no open containers, there's no, like, I just don't want bugs in here. And also we share the fridge. So if we could, keep it clean so that it didn't smell, that would just, it's a group effort. I totally get it. And on weeks, and I was like considerate in the sense, I was like, on weeks where, you're really busy, you're really anxious because, she's an engineer, so she's working like crazy. I was like, if you have a lot of work, just let me know. And I'm more than willing to clean up, but I need to know times when you will be less, available to take care of the room.
And how did she respond when you approached her on all that?
Well, she's really kind and considerate. So she was like, I feel really bad. I'm sorry. And I totally understand that it gets messy. She gets really anxious about school, and I totally get it.
Yeah.
And in the long run, her grades are more important than her room.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she was like, thank you so much for, being considerate, and I will definitely let you know. So basically, like, especially during finals, I was in the studio most of the time, so in the long run, it didn't really bother me, but she got really good. She definitely, with regards to food, like, totally was conscious of, like, when things were going bad, and, like, was more prone to, like, freezing things instead of, or, like, using, like, the communal fridge for stuff that she wasn't really sure if she was going to eat or not. So she,
like your willingness, again, to be honest and candid about your feelings rather than, kind of let it go and then talk about her behind her back and
totally
tell your friends about it. You were just willing to be direct with her, which is, again, it's scary to do that. It requires
scary,
courage.
Especially when you live with them, because then you don't really know, like, if she had reacted poorly, that could have just been super bad and we would have just been on bad terms the whole time. But she was actually rather considerate and totally understood where I was coming from.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot. I think people are afraid to speak their truth or share their feelings because they're not sure how the other person's going to react, and they want to control the experience, right? So like, oh, I don't want to upset her. I don't want to make her mad. I don't want to make things awkward between us, so I won't say anything. So, and then we end up creating more drama around it because we don't end up getting what we want or need. And so and it's so common because as adults do that. We all do that. We all avoid saying things to others because we're afraid of their reaction. And it's a way in which we actually disempower ourselves because do you get that?
Yeah. And I think it's especially important to just be like empathetic when you're going into the situation. Like a big thing for me was like being able to see why she's like was messy and like what played into that and like what, where her like concerns lied. And that was like in her being able to have time to, study and work out and, maintain that part of her life. So things like her room, came second. And that's me understanding that from her perspective, I think made it a lot easier for us to, like reach an agreement on like what needed to happen in order for us to maintain like a better living space.
Yeah, I love that you offered to like, hey, I'm happy to help out when you're in really busy times, and it's like I've got your back, and
Yeah.
and I'm not gonna like pick up after you all the time, but let me know
Yeah.
you need a little help, and that's the way you guys are supporting each other, and that's awesome. That's a great story. And I know it sounds minor, right, like messy room or whatever, but these are the kinds of things that really contribute to our overall experience, our
Yeah.
experience of stress, because when we have these things going on sort of underneath the surface and we're not outing them and we're not resolving them, they cause us stress and anxiety, and we don't even pile those things up. We got a number of those things going on, and it becomes a really stressful experience. And I also, Emery, that it contributes to loneliness when you can't be honest with the people you're like sleeping next to or living.
Yeah. And I also think as soon as your living space becomes uncomfortable, that just contributes to a whole nother factor of just like being uncomfortable in the general college environment.
Yeah.
Because this is like, I feel like your room is like, that's where you live, that's where you sleep, like that's where you spend time. And like having a place where you feel comfortable is like so important and like so vital to, getting comfortable in the general college campus. So I think because you're moving from like a completely, I mean, especially for some kids, this is the first time they've ever moved ever and, ever had to, uproot themselves from their home, and they're going to a completely new place in a totally alien dorm and having to, just like make do with this like new bed and like having all of that is just like really jarring, especially in like the first night I slept in my dorm was just so weird. I mean, I had moved before, but like now just being like, okay, well, this is my temporary home.
Yeah.
And like being able to be comfortable in a space like that is like so important because, that's like your line of defense between like social life and being able to like return back to your dorm and feel comfortable. And if you can't even feel comfortable in your dorm, that is just gonna heighten your level of discomfort in your whole college experience.
Yeah, so there's the dorm itself, there's the roommate, there's so many factors that go into that. And for you, having a clean, comfortable space was important, and that's part of your experience. Yeah.
For sure.
What I thought was so great about this conversation with Emery, first off, was her ability to step out of judgment, step out of her frustrations, and be compassionate and understanding to where her roommate was coming from. While she was super annoyed about her messy roommate habits, she was also mindful. She was able to step back and think about her roommate's priorities. Rather than judge her, she stopped and stepped in her shoes, trying to understand her. From this place, Emery went to her roommate with open heart, open mind, and some compassion, some understanding. And she and her roommate were able to come up with some agreements that satisfied both of them. This created the condition for both of them to be happy and successful, cohabitating together. So what we need to remember is that we're 100% responsible for our circumstances. And from an open mind and an open heart, we can create anything we want. People respond to us when we're open and compassionate and kind and understanding. So in this case, being kind and understanding doesn't mean letting go of Emery's needs to have a clean and organized room. It just means I can go into the situation asking for what I want with kindness, compassion, and understanding, and an open mind. So she's being in an open state, allowing for both of them to negotiate in a friendly manner. I love this conversation with her. Thanks for listening in, and definitely tune in next week to learn the difference between content and context and why it's so important to know where you are in any given moment. Thanks for listening to University. If you liked what you heard, I'd be absolutely thrilled for you to share with a friend, and equally grateful for you to pop over and rate and review on iTunes. It really helps. You can find more information and stay in touch over at university.u on Instagram or at University on Facebook. I'll look forward to seeing you there. For more information, email me at annemarie.university@gmail.com or click the link in the show notes below.